This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
And welcome to Fruitloops. Buiti binafi and bienvenidos, bitches. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Fruitloops is a podcast about true crimes committed by people of color and those who are othered and the victims, because there are, believe it or not, systems, institutions, and patterns in society that gatekeep this information. But we're going to give it to you straight, no chaser. The truth is, we're all capable of doing very shitty stuff.
Yep.
And all victims deserve to have their stories told. These crimes rarely get any public attention because, in the simplest of terms, the news is racist. Allegedly.
And we are Wendy and Beth. She's Wendy, a Black Latinx woman, and I'm Beth, and I just happen to be white.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's just a little piece of who we are.
Oh, yes.
But who we are not is journalists, investigators, or psychologists. We're just a couple of gals interested in true crime. Also, the opinions expressed in this podcast are just that, our opinions.
All right. Who are we talking about today, friend?
Well, today's our episode 241 about Falicia Blakely and Ameshia Ervin, two women who killed three men in Atlanta, Georgia in 2002.
All right. Before we get into it, how you doing?
I'm all right. So we're recording this a little over a week before our trip to the UK. So I'm gearing up for that and getting kind of excited.
Yeah, getting actually super excited for CrimeCon. Is this episode going to air when we're there?
Yes, it should air like the Thursday before CrimeCon.
Okay, so if you're like, who are these bitches? And you just happen to be in the UK, come on down to the CrimeCon and see us.
Yeah, come see us and say hello. And there's going to be like meet and greets and stuff too.
Yeah,
so check it out.
It's a lot of fun. And then we'll be there a little bit afterwards and there'll be so many fun things to do.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Now let's get into, let's see. Yes, listener letters.
Well, hello, angels. Thank you.
What's in that bag, Beth?
Well, the angels just dropped off an empty bag.
Phooey.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. If you guys have any questions or comments, please send them to fruitloopspod@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 602-935-6294. And we may feature it on a future episode, but if you don't want us to, we don't have to. Just let us know and we won't.
Yeah, send us voicemails about how you're feeling about the state of true crime. We talk about so many things that it feels like it's hard to be like, just call us on this one subject. So just get at us, have a conversation with us. Yeah. Oh, right. Well, we do. Let me tell you what the bag does have. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
2 brand new Patreons.
Ooh, yeah.
And so hip-hop air horns to Viola.
Well, hello, Viola. Thank you.
Yes, and to Chrissy. You know what? I can't be out here saying your full names. Chrissy L. and Viola M. thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
For joining the Patreon. There's multiple tiers, and they join the one that worked for them, and we thank you so much. But actually, here's your personalized tunes.
Okay.
Thank you, Viola. Thank you so much, Viola. I hope you like that. And then this one is for Chrissy. Okay. Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks, Chrissy. Ring-a-ling-a-ling. Thank you all so much. Thank you both, Viola and Chrissy. And to all the Patreons, new, old, and in between, we've been doing this for over 6 years, almost maybe 7 or 8 now. And
we started in 2018.
Oh, I can't do math.
So
anyway, it's been a
math.
while. It's been more than this many if I hold up my hand all the way. And I never thought anybody would listen to this, let alone like we'd find a community of folks and in a very real way. And now here we are like on our way to CrimeCon UK, and it would not be possible without any of you. So we're just really, really, really grateful. So hip hop air horns to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks you guys.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into the story when we come back.
My name is Bill Huffman, and I am a former Cleveland news producer, and I am now the host of the podcast, Who Killed? I began the show focusing on the unsolved murder of Amy Mihaljevic, and now each week I explore a different case with a focus on some of the victims who don't get the attention they deserve. I have a deep catalog of over 225 episodes, so there is a guarantee there will be something for you. Who Killed is an evergreen podcast, killer podcasts, and slow burn media production. Subscribe today wherever you get your favorite shows.
On the morning of August 1st, 1966, shots ring out from the observation deck of the clock tower on the University of Texas campus. It marks the infamous beginning of the modern era of mass shootings in America.
You're listening to Stop the Killing podcast. Join us as we take you behind the crime scene tape to explain global mass shootings and mass attacks. I'm Sarah Ferris, but more importantly, this is Catherine Schweit, the former head of the FBI's active shooter program.
I spent 5 years as the FBI's top executive looking for answers to the mass shooting crisis. I've been at the shooting scenes, I've traced heroic acts of bravery, and I've sat silently and listened to the heart-wrenching stories from survivors.
Amongst this horror, there is hope. We all hold the key to stop the killing. You just need to know how to unlock the door. Download Stop the Killing and be part of the solution. Search Stop the Killing on Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects.
We're back. Remind us, Beth, who is our subject today?
Our subject today is Falicia Blakely and Ameshia Ervin, 2 women in Atlanta, Georgia, who killed 3 men in just a few hours. Why they did it is under debate, but let's get into it.
Let's do it. Now it's the time for the love and light section where we just say rest and power to the victims whose lives were cut short, and love and light to their loved ones and their communities and anybody who knew them or has any connection to these folks, these victims left in the wake of the tragedy. The victims are Raymond Goodwin, 34, Claudel Doc Christmas, 35, Lemetrius Michi Twitty, 29, and Frederick Calloway survived, but we don't think this is Mr. Calloway's real name. It's probably a pseudonym, so he could,
Not really sure what his name is. I tried to find out, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, not 100%
but that's
sure
the
on
pseudonym,
that one.
or it could be his real name, but I think it's a pseudonym that they used.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, now let's get into the setting. Take us there, Beth.
Well, the setting is Atlanta, Georgia in the early 2000s. And we've been here before, so we're not going to go into the old history and all that. But suffice it to say, Atlanta is Georgia's capital, its largest city, and the principal trade and transportation center of the southeastern United States.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, Atlanta has been called the city too busy to hate. And this attitude meant that antiquated beliefs about race were put aside in the name of prosperity and growth. They were put aside, but it did not disappear, and it's not extinct.
Along with many other major cities in the U.S., Atlanta was hard hit by the crack epidemic of most of the 1980s and early 1990s. In 1997, drug-related crime, though, in the metro Atlanta area increased slightly, in part due to Atlanta becoming an important distribution center for cocaine and other related drugs imported from Mexico. And if you just take a second to look at the highways and byways of the Southeast and the fact that there's railroads, and the fact that there's an airport, the largest airport in the country, it makes so much sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But due to large amounts of revitalization projects in the city core, crime began to fall, and the business of hip-hop contributed to a boom in the Atlanta economy at that time. Atlanta's hip-hop culture was vibrant and influential, marking a significant period in the city's musical history. And Wendy's going to give you some key highlights.
Yeah. Just kidding. No, I'm sorry. What was the question? I shouldn't have did that. I'm sorry. Okay. So in the early 2000s, the South had something to say, according to my future husband, Andre Three Stacks. Benjamin. Anyway, said the South got something to say and the world took notice, for reals. And we were introduced to Lil Jon and the East Side Boys and crunk music. And Atlanta was like this hub for Southern rap artists. And another thing that's different about Southern artists compared to the ones in New York, some people say, is Southern artists are more collaborative than other artists.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Artists like Ludacris, Young Jeezy, Outkast, and T.I. added their Southern flair. And
Who was that right? Again, Beth?
T.I.?
Yes.
Is
you
it
said
really
it right.
T.I.?
It was just funny, but I was just thought it was so funny to hear it come out of your mouth.
Added their Southern flair and helped Atlanta take its place as a cultural pillar of hip-hop and black culture in the U.S. and around the world. And in 2009, the New York Times called Atlanta hip-hop's center of gravity.
Atlanta hip-hop influenced music. It influenced fashion, dance, and language all over the country. You couldn't stop getting these white kids to say, "What? Yeah." And white kids all across the United States could rap. I would be in the car with these people, rap every single lyric of an Outkast or Ludacris song, except the N-word, in my presence. Mm-hmm. And they knew that shit by heart, and they would, as we say it with their chest, with full-throated passion. And it was something to see.
And at the same time, the music industry was undergoing a drastic change with the digital revolution and the rise of shared music and digital downloads. This democratized the music industry and shifted the power dynamics.
Kind of reminds me of podcasting,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, democratizing the space.
Yeah.
But the hustle spirit and the get money real quick attitude also created a vacuum for organized and violent crime. So although in the early 2000s, Atlanta saw a decline in murders, one source I found said 50% decline in murders, and violent crime decreased across the city. Because of this vacuum, drug-related crime increased, which contributed to drug-related violence.
Hip-hop as an art form reflected the realities of the life and times through the eyes and experiences of young black people in the city. Themes of street life, survival, and hustling are woven throughout the music.
Some people have criticized the music for making crime, street life, and hustling seem glamorous because at the end, you can get money, you can get respect, and you can get all the women you like. And I would also agree that hip-hop culture, I think, did glamorize the nightlife.
Yeah,
I know I wanted to.
Did.
When I grew up, I wanted to be a video girl. And it really glamorized things like the sex trade that people my age weren't familiar with before. But hip-hop opened my eyes to this whole world. And everybody, do you remember pimps and hoes parties of the early 2000s?
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody wanted to be a pimp. And, there was the Chappelle Show, the Players Ball, and the Bishop Don Juan, who was going on tour with Snoop Dogg. Like, that was all very, very exciting. And music videos and lyrics normalized these depictions of, strip clubs and dancers doing incredible acrobatic athletic things.
Oh, yeah. And there was also the pole dancing,
the craze.
Class.
Everybody wanted to take those exercise classes at the gym.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Beth, were you in your wine club? Is that what you were doing before you did wine club and book club?
No.
Okay.
I never did that, but I kind of wanted to. But
there's still time.
There wasn't one around when I wanted to take it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never took one either, but I wanted to.
Maybe I'll take one now.
I actually priced a pole at the time. Me and old Whitey had just kind of met, and I was like, you can get a pole for $180 and put it in your apartment, and your landlord never has to know. It might have gone up in price because of inflation.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But since hip-hop's inception decades ago, there have been plenty of folks in the hip-hop community that have also helped shed light on social issues like poverty, police brutality, white supremacy, exploitation, and human trafficking.
Atlanta is a major transportation hub for trafficking of young girls from southern countries and is one of 14 U.S. cities with the highest levels of child sex trafficking. In 2007, the sex trade generated $290 million in Atlanta. I can only imagine that.
Wow.
Now it's a lot more. In 2023, Atlanta ranked second behind Washington, D.C. in human trafficking activity.
Yikes.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
Scary.
Very scary. So now let's get into the early life of Falicia Blakely and Ameshia Ervin.
Well, first of all, I have to say that a lot of this information comes from Falicia Blakely.
Oh.
So take that however you want to take that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, we don't know the veracity of everything that she has said. And you will notice that although the title of this episode is Falicia Blakely and Ameshia Ervin, we're not going to be talking a lot about Ms. Ervin. And that's because Ameshia Ervin hasn't revealed a lot. She hasn't talked a lot. And Ervin and Blakely barely knew each other, so we don't know much about her or her early life, unfortunately. Also, just as an aside, there is a movie and a couple of books out there about Blakely, actually written by somebody who she gave the rights to her story to, I believe.
Oh, I thought she wrote it.
Well, this other lady wrote it, but in collaboration with her.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of the names were changed for the movie and the book. So some of the names we use may not be correct. And that's why I said, that one guy, it might be a pseudonym.
Do you know?
That is a pseudonym. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was talking about Frederick Calloway.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got you. Alrighty. I'm following now. Again, I'm back.
Okay.
Back on planet Earth with you. Back
here
on
we
planet
are.
Fruitloops. Here we are. So we do know a lot about Falicia Blakely because she has been very vocal and communicative with her story. Yeah. Falicia was born in 1983, and she was raised on the east side of Jacksonville, Florida. Her father struggled with a drug addiction and just was not around. And, it's the 80s. Her mother had difficulty taking care of her, so she bounced back and forth between her mother and her grandmother.
According to Falicia, she was sexually abused multiple times as a child. Her aunt's boyfriend groomed her and began having sex with her when she was just a teen. Before she even started high school, she quote-unquote dated men 3 decades her senior. And I put that in quotes because that's not dating.
No.
These men were gross.
Yeah. No, my understanding is to hear Falicia tell it, she, as many young girls are at that age, he likes me, right? Like proud of the fact
Especially
that somebody older likes you.
Yeah. And your dad's not around and you have that hole in your soul looking for somebody to love you.
Yeah. Just looking for that. So that's where I thought it came from. But odd thing to say. Now, with the money she got from a sugar daddy at the age of 14.
At the age of 14, a sugar daddy.
Yeah, that's a baby.
Horrible.
14-year-olds are doing all kinds of things we never thought possible in the year of our Lord.
I'm just disgusted with the men.
Yeah. You know what? Thank you for saying that, because it is she's a child and doesn't
She
have
was a child,
agency.
and
Shame on the
exactly.
men. Absolutely. I'm sorry if I did not make that clear. But Falicia was able to buy her own clothes, to buy food for her grandmother, to pay for other incidentals and cover the costs of her cousin's salon visits. And spending on others was a source of pride for her. But it also gave her a sense of power and control, something she might not have had ever before.
Yeah, exactly. When she was not quite 16, Falicia was living with her grandmother when her mother decided it was time for her daughter to move back in with her. And that meant Falicia would be sent to Atlanta, where her mother had been transferred for work.
In Atlanta, she tried going to school, but soon grew frustrated. She'd have to repeat the 9th grade. So Falicia dropped out over her mother's protests. She picked up a job at the Taco Bell across from Greenbrier Mall, where she was quickly promoted from front register to drive-through.
So she was smart.
Yeah, taking steps to earn.
Yeah, she worked hard. I mean, otherwise she wouldn't have been promoted. So
Yep. All good things so far.
yeah, all good things. There, she met a customer who influenced her to try to get a job as an exotic dancer. She bought a fake birth certificate and social security card, then a driver's license that made her 21. Falicia looked older than her age, and she had no problem convincing people that she was 21. And with these credentials, she was able to get an adult dancing permit, and she began dancing in the clubs.
I feel like this part of the story doesn't get as much shine as it should, only because there were people and systems who could have prevented this young person from continuing.
Doing all these things.
Yeah.
It was actually adults
who are
helped
helping
her
Yeah.
get these birth certificates and social security card. And
Yeah.
somebody had to help her get those things.
A grown-up person. And it bothers me. And I don't have anything else to say about it, but now let's get into the timeline. So it was while she was working in the club that Blakely first met Michael Berry. He was 14 years her senior. Blakely regularly dated older men, so that wasn't an issue for her. But he didn't interest her at the time. She was seeing another man who had helped her move out of her mother's place and paid her rent, right? So somebody who was taking care of her and showing her affection. And she got pregnant by that man. But then they broke up. He didn't want anything to do with the baby. And so she had to move back in with her mother.
Blakely danced throughout her pregnancy. She met Mike Berry again while dancing during this time. And he got her attention by paying double for lap dances and then paying for her to just sit and talk with him. And I think she was vulnerable at this time, not only because, she broke up with her boyfriend, she was pregnant and trying to make money dancing. And she wasn't making as much because she was pregnant.
Right. And she's young.
And she's young. Yeah. All of those factors. So she was pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
And he asked her to come home with him, but she said no. But he was back the next day.
He convinced her to go out with him, but they never went out because he was arrested on the night they'd made plans. Berry called her from jail nearly every day. And then he sent someone to pay Felicia's mother's phone bill. He also sent a young man called Shy over to Blakely to do whatever Blakely told him to. Wow.
Yeah. Shy drove Blakely to work, to run errands, to see the obstetrician. She did nothing for him in return. Berry was pulling the strings even behind bars. Blakely kind of liked that. She assumed he earned his money, respect, and command from selling drugs, but she didn't mind.
Yeah, but you also have to consider the time, right?
And her age.
And her age.
All that stuff.
Yeah. Context. I mean, today it seems to me, in my mind, but I'm not in her mind. So to her,
you're not in her shoes.
I'm trying to figure out ways this could make sense to a young girl. But on December 30th, in the year 2000, Blakely gave birth to a baby boy. Berry had gotten out of jail sometime before, but didn't tell her, so he wasn't there for the birth. When he did see her, he immediately began pushing her to move out of her mother's house and let him put her up somewhere. She refused. She wasn't ready. She went back to dancing.
He bought her roses, chocolate, jewelry, fur coats. He even bought her mother jewelry. The girls at the club thought he was great. A few weeks later, Blakely agreed to move in with him at an extended stay hotel.
Oh, I was just thinking, oh, wow. lavish extended stay.
Yeah.
Extended stay hotel. What? Fur coat. Extended stay. Wait, this doesn't go
make
together.
Any sense. Yeah.
But again, you're young. I mean, if I was a teenager and somebody bought me one nice thing, do you know what little it would take me to lose my self-respect? I'm not saying that that's what she did, but I mean, for somebody hungry for like somebody to pay attention to them, it wouldn't have taken me all of that. That's all I'm saying. But extended stay. Anyway, at first, Barry was the perfect boyfriend, bringing her flowers, treating her little boy as his own son. And looking back, Blakely said, quote, "He was buttering me. He was really investing. That was all he was doing. And I was sucking it up. He was sweet for a long time," unquote.
And this tactic is called love bombing. It's when someone, quote unquote, bombs you with over-the-top displays of attention and affection with the intent to manipulate you. One of the signs of love bombing at the start of a relationship is intense attention during a short period of time and pressure for very rapid commitment.
Yeah, I'd never heard of love bombing, Fran, until you brought it up on one of our earlier recordings back in the day. It was something totally new to me. And if you'd never heard of it or didn't recognize it, then how can you sort of protect yourself against it, right? Yeah. So love bombers can be experts at detecting low self-esteem and exploiting it. They seem to emotionally attach very quickly and shower you with affection and gifts and promises for the future. They may praise you effusively, tell you they adore you, even love you, or say they want to marry you, all within days or weeks of meeting you. And is that the key to it? Is that it happens in such a short period of time? Yeah, it happens really
fast, and they push for commitment. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of a lot of relationships, there will be some intensity, but not to this extent.
Yeah.
If you've ever experienced this, and I have, if you're in a healthy place, it's really obvious. But if you're not in a healthy place, it can be like just overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, I'm so in love, you know?
Yeah. Overwhelming. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Beth.
You're
for
welcome.
sharing being a little vulnerable with us over here in Fruitloopsville.
From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
So when the scammer uses the hypnotic method of building rapport, then they create dysfunctional, delusional reality.
That's how a scam begins, convincing the mark that it makes perfect sense to hand over their money to a con artist. The Scams and Cons podcast tells you how scams are run. You'll hear how people are convinced to buy fake art, buy machines that print money, or steal your house.
I get a phone call from my wife, and she let me know that they had decided to move all our stuff out. I could no longer do anything about it except go through an eviction.
And you'll hear it from the experts, people who run the cons.
So we go to your bank, you go in and get $6,000 cash, give us each $3,000, we give you this. You go home, and what you find out is cut up newspaper.
It's fun to know how the trick is done, and that's what Scams and Cons is all about. Listen at scamsandcons.com or wherever fine podcasts are found.
So at some point, Barry gave Blakely the gift of a silver chain with a silver and gold padlock on it. Not a cute fake jewelry padlock, a real padlock.
Like slavery style?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah. I don't care who's putting it on.
You can see her wearing it in her mugshot, and in her eyes, the necklace was a representation of Barry's love for her. But if you look at the mugshot, you'll see someone who's been shackled.
Yeah, that's definitely what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
And what is it Kanye says? Or Kanye's not the first person to say this. Even though you have gold chains, you are still in bondage, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what it made me think of when I saw the image of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In between 2001 and 2002, Barry began pressuring Blakely to find a way to make more money. She was making about $300 a night, which is a lot.
A lot.
And he felt like she needed to make $700 a night to, quote, set up a life someplace where she could have his babies and be out of the clubs for good, unquote. Man, that's a line I've seen in a movie or two, right? Like, let me set you up someplace.
Right. So he's pushing her to make more money and, putting this carrot in front of her.
Yeah.
Like, if you can just make more money, then we could have a life together and have children and, just
so
dangling that in front of her.
Yeah, but what about the money he could be making? What are you doing during the day? From 9 to 5, sir. Yeah. And he kept doing this throughout their relationship.
Yeah.
She does end up doing it. And then he's like, oh, it's not enough. We need more.
It's never enough.
Yeah.
So eventually he bullied her into having sex with customers at the strip club. Then, if she didn't make quota, which was $700 a night, he beat her or trafficked her, so he would make her go out and have sex with men to get the money. So she began stealing to make quota because she didn't want to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll get into this more in my takeaways, but at every turn, every person we talk about in this case is in some ways trying to survive.
Yeah.
At different degrees, but I'll get into it later. He then began asking her to bring home other dancers from the club, telling her that 2 girls together can make a lot more than 2 on their own. And she did. And Mike started setting quotas for several girls. And he put Blakely in charge of the girls.
Sometimes she would partner with a girl and go out of town to make money. She and her girls would hit the clubs, selling both drugs and themselves. Blakely started drinking too much. Some nights she'd be too drunk to know what was going on.
Her girls didn't always make their quotas. Sometimes their own appetite for drugs nearly wiped out their earnings. When they came up short, it was Blakely who had to make up the difference. When she did not, which was often, she was beaten.
All of this made it difficult for Blakely to take care of her baby. She eventually took her son to her mother to raise.
At some point, Barry gave Blakely a pistol and began pressuring her to start robbing men, killing them if she had to. I mean, the boundaries and goalposts keep moving.
Yeah.
And on Barry's direction, during the week of spring break, Blakely went down to Florida with another girl to make some money.
The way Orlando police described it, 2 girls in an SUV with out-of-state tags stopped to talk to a man, Frederick Calloway, which, as we mentioned, may be a pseudonym, in a restaurant parking lot. The girls asked him if he knew a cheap place to spend the night.
All 3 of them ended up at a motel. Frederick ended up with a gunshot wound through the neck and the back of his head. The 2 girls panicked and left, taking nothing from their victim. Police found Frederick hours later, semi-conscious and lying on bloody sheets. And he lived. And I have to say that in the movie,
how
this is Floyd Money Mayweather's character that this happened to.
When Blakely got back to Atlanta, because she didn't stay to make more money in Florida, Barry sprayed her with gasoline and lit a match, threatening to burn her alive.
Oh my God. She eventually teamed up with fellow dancer Ameshia Ervin, who went by the nickname Snow. Blakely went by Peaches. A few weeks after the Florida trip, Blakely, Barry, and Ervin were invited to a yacht party at Lake Lanier. Oh, I've been to one of those, where Blakely and Ervin could make some money. By the way, quick culture corner, Lake Lanier was Oscarville, USA, used to be an all-black town, used to be a Cherokee indigenous burial ground.
Yeah.
And now it's a giant
It's a lake
that has killed 700 people since it was filled up with water. Anyway, continue.
The trio was invited by Ray Goodwin, a photographer who took pictures for a lot of exotic dancers in Atlanta. Ray grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. He was raised by a single mother along with 4 siblings. He was described as someone who was always helping people.
I love that idea of just somebody always helping people.
Yeah.
Most of his family eventually migrated to Atlanta. He was considered the fun uncle, which I love even more, and full of life. In Atlanta, he worked as a car salesman before. At the age of 31, he got into photography. At first, he worked as a photographer in a department store, but he always wanted to get into the entertainment industry.
Ray was especially close to his sister Carlita Smokey Jones, who was an exotic dancer. It was Carlita who hooked Ray up, taking pictures for the other dancers. He began taking photos of dancers to help them build their portfolios to better market themselves.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. This is kind of also around Instagram, I think, was 2006.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But once, people could start marketing themselves as
online.
Brands, this makes, of course, I love it. So Ray got really popular as a photographer for dancers. He also made a lot of friends, including a man named Claudel, a.k.a. Doc Christmas. Doc was also friends with Carlita and tight with Ray's family. Ray was dating a woman named Akasha Turner, and he was at the peak of his success.
Blakely and Ervin did well at Ray's yacht party. They met a few men, entertainment industry types with money, and one of the men was Doc Christmas.
But about a week later, Blakely and 2 other women were driving home from the club when they got pulled over by police. They lost all of their money and drugs, and they had to pay a bondsman to get out of jail.
Barry was pissed and tired of the slow hustling. Good.
Well,
he was tired of forcing all these women to work for him.
I am exhausted.
I'm exhausted.
Also, he's playing a very stupid game.
Yeah.
And when you play stupid games, you win stupid
prizes. Yeah.
But also, so do the people who are engaging in the games with you, which is unfair for an adult to have done that to young people.
Yeah. So he wanted Blakely to hit it big. Blakely and Ervin believed Ray Goodwin had money, since he was known to carry a lot of cash. He became Barry's next mark, and he concocted a plan to have Blakely and Ervin rob and kill him.
On August 15th, 2002, Blakely and Ervin showed up at Ray's at about 2 p.m. to bring him ecstasy. It was always expected that she would hang out when she delivered drugs. So she and Ervin hung out for a while.
Doc came over later. The 4 had drinks, had some food, smoked a little weed. Ray's girlfriend, Akasha, had been communicating with him all day, and he told her that they were hanging out with 2 women he called Peaches and Snow. He was supposed to head to the clubs in Buckhead later that evening because it was Akasha's birthday.
The whole time, Barry kept calling Blakely to get a status and to encourage her to go through with the plan to rob and kill Ray. And now Doc too. Per court records, he called her a total of 6 times. She didn't want to do it, understandably. And she knew both the men and liked them. They were nice to her. Like, they were going to help her if she were to continue, right, with this dancing thing, that they could have helped her build her portfolio.
Yeah. But according to Blakely, in his final call, Barry threatened to show up and kill everyone himself, including her and Ervin. And it was this that finally pushed Blakely over the edge.
Doc was on the phone talking to a guy called G when Blakely fired a round into his right temple. His cell phone fell from his hand, the caller still on the line, as he fell back into the sofa. She then turned and started shooting Ray, who jumped up and stumbled across the room. He made it to the patio door, but the door was locked. Ray fell to the floor and died.
Blakely and Ervin took money from Ray and Doc, then hastily filled a duffel bag with everything they remembered touching. A glass, a Coke can, a photo book they'd been flipping through, and then they took off in Blakely's truck.
Soon afterwards, Ray's sister, Carlita, got a phone call from Doc's friend G, who told her that he'd been on the phone with Doc when he heard gunshots and female voices saying, quote, get the money, unquote.
Carlita tried to call her brother and Doc, but neither answered, so she went over to the apartment to investigate herself. And that's when she and her friend found the bodies. Ray had a gunshot to the head, as well as several more in his abdomen. Doc died of a single shot to the head.
It's really, just Sad.
Yeah.
Carlita later said, quote, "Finding my brother dead, that changed my life forever. Everything was rushing through my head. Who, what, when, why. I just broke down crying. We couldn't wrap our minds around it," unquote.
Police found no signs of forced entry at Ray's apartment and no signs of a struggle. So they believed Ray and Doc knew their killer. Police found .32 caliber shells, which come from a smaller gun, usually carried by females.
Because of the phone call with G, they also believed that there had been at least 2 perpetrators, most likely women. Investigators also looked through the victims' phones to see who they had been communicating with.
Carlita told officers that robbery may have been a motive because Ray had a lot of expensive photography equipment and both he and Doc were known to carry large amounts of cash. Money from each man's wallet was missing.
When Blakely and Ervin got back to the motel where Barry was waiting for them, they gave him the money and he went out. But when he returned later, he said he had been robbed, nigga, and told Blakely that she would have to go out again and make it back. I don't know if I believe that his robbery
I don't think
story.
He was robbed. From what I heard, I don't even remember where I heard this or read it. Mm-hmm. He owed money to somebody.
Yeah, for drugs, right?
Yeah. So he probably used that to pay them back, and then he wanted more money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So although she was exhausted, Blakely went back out, bringing Ervin with her. In the early hours of August 16th, the 2 women went to a club in the Buckhead area of Atlanta and picked up Demetrius Michi Twitty, 29. Michi was an Ohio-born master barber who'd come to Atlanta 4 years earlier.
Michi lived in a second-floor apartment in Clarkston. He invited the women back to his place, and they went. The trio smoked some weed, and one of them, each says it was the other, slept with him.
After Michi fell asleep, they rummaged through the apartment looking for his cash. Michi woke up and, realizing what was going on, yelled out. Blakely pulled her gun and, claiming that Michi lunged for her, she shot him again and again.
Blakely would later say, quote, "I just let go on the trigger and all of them bullets emptied," unquote. A neighbor heard the gunshots, 5 she guessed, at around 2 or 3 a.m. The 2 women made off with the gold Maximum Michi had rented and $650, about what they would have made if they had just danced that night.
So, yeah, if they had just gone out dancing, they could have not killed anybody and made about the same amount of money.
Yeah, this wouldn't wow.
Yeah. 2 days later, Michi was found shot and killed in his apartment. Police discovered the same .32 caliber shell casings found in Goodwin's apartment. Michi ran in the same circles as Carlita Jones, Ray Goodwin, and Doc Christmas, so there's a lot of lines or...
Yeah, a lot of mutual connections and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Carlita said, quote, "We heard he got killed, so we were like, what the hell? You know, what the heck is going on? I was shocked. I could not believe it. We actually just were so scared. You know what I mean? We got a serial killer out here," unquote, which is crazy to have 2 serial killers in the city of Atlanta in, I don't know, what is that? When were the Atlanta child murders?
Oh, that was in the 70s and the 80s, I think. Yeah.
Isn't that a lot for one city? I'm just saying.
I wouldn't classify Blakely and Ervin as serial killers.
You wouldn't?
No.
More on that later. Now let's get into the investigation and the arrest.
Ray's girlfriend, Akasha, told police that the night of the murder, Ray and Doc were hanging out with strippers known only as Peaches and Snow. Carlita believed that she had met the women at the yacht party a few weeks before the murders.
Carlita decided to try and help in the investigation. Because she was a known dancer in Atlanta's clubs, a few strip clubs allowed her to look at their permit books, where records of dancers are kept. Jones was able to recognize and identify the dancer known as Peaches. It was Falicia Blakely. But still, police were unable to locate her.
Police got a break when, 10 days after the murders, someone called 911 to report suspicious women in the lobby of a Mrs. Winter's Chicken and Biscuits restaurant. There had been a series of armed robberies at Mrs. Winter's locations all over Atlanta, and the workers at the restaurants had been warned.
When police arrived, they found 3 women hiding in the bathroom, including Blakely and Ervin. A run of the tags on the vehicle they drove to the restaurant showed it matched Michi's missing Nissan Maxima. And I believe it was gold.
Yeah, it was gold.
Which is kind of not a unusual color for a Nissan Maxima. But at the same time, maybe it is.
Yeah, I mean, it would stick out, I would think.
It would stick out, but there's a lot of them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. The women had tried to get rid of their guns in the restaurant bathroom toilet tank. One of the guns was a .32 caliber, the same handgun used in the murders. Blakely and Ervin were arrested. When detectives interviewed Blakely, she admitted to killing Ray, Doc, and Michi. Police described Blakely as a cold-blooded woman, doing whatever was necessary to get money. Which I don't think is true.
No, she's a really young girl.
She's a victim.
Yeah, a victim, exactly. DeKalb Assistant District Attorney Tom Clegg later said, quote, Miss Blakely, her statement was remarkably candid. This was a girl who was being charged with 3 different murders and just lays it all out. She didn't sugarcoat it. Probably because she was hoping that the state would, like, protect her.
Yeah, she probably just, like, I've had enough. I've had it. This is what happened. Here you go.
Yeah.
That's what I think happened.
Yeah. I feel like it's a combination of both of our ideas. Okay.
Oh, I was just kind of reiterating kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
I was agreeing with you.
I was agreeing with you too. Okay. Are we best friends again? Okay,
yes,
bye.
we are.
Okay.
Blakely was found with identification that claimed she was 24 years old, but at the time of the murders, she was only 19. According to Ervin, when the two were arrested, she'd only known Blakely for a little over a month. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's not very much time at all to commit such big acts. Like, I wouldn't poop in front of somebody if I didn't really trust them. And I don't know if I could kill another person unless I really knew them and trusted the person that I was doing it with.
Committing the murder
in
with.
my head. Yeah, murder is a big act.
Would never do it, but...
Yeah. Like, it's just...
But if you did...
But if I did, I would really have to know that person very, very well. You know what I'm saying? Okay,
yes.
Anyway, let's get into the trial.
We're committing murder together, is what you're saying.
Have I pooped in front of you? Oh my God. I probably have. I don't even think about it with like people like that I am comfortable with. I would remember if it was traumatic.
Not in front of me, but I mean, in the bathroom.
Yeah, but like, we've shared hotel rooms because we've gone all over the world because of Fruitloops, serial killers, but I've never pooped in front of you with like the door open.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's the real love I'm talking about.
Okay, that's the level we got to get to before we start committing murders. Got it.
Yeah, okay. Wow, I feel like I know you so much better. I also feel like, boy, oh boy, are the listeners going to be in for a surprise.
The poop discussion.
Woo! I'm thinking about it a lot. Pooping. Anyway, poop and true crime. Now let's get into the trial, shall we?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. So Blakely's defense attorneys painted Barry as the real bad guy, arguing that Blakely was being used, and she was a victim herself. Although DA Tom Clegg expressed interest in charging Barry with the murders, this is what he said. He needed Ervin's cooperation. And I don't know if that's 100% true. It feels like it's lazy to me. And Ervin wasn't interested. Remember, she didn't know Blakely. Like, we're not like friends. I don't know her like that. Yeah. I don't know what I'm risking. Yeah, by I don't poop in front of her. So that's final. So Barry was never charged with any crimes related to the murders.
Instead, Ervin took a plea deal in which she would receive concurrent life sentences and could be eligible for parole in 14 years in return for pleading guilty and testifying against Blakely. She told the court she was sorry, but gave little explanation as to why she joined Blakely in the killing spree.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV Insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
To avoid the death penalty, Blakely pleaded guilty. She testified at the plea hearing that Barry ordered her to rob and then kill the men, or he would kill her. Like, that should have been enough of an explanation.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
As relatives of her victims listened in the courtroom, Blakely read a statement saying, quote, "I am so sorry. I can only pray at some point in your life you will forgive me and get over this awful misfortune that I have caused you," unquote. Even her language is juvenile.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. Just like you can tell she didn't have all the pieces to make these decisions.
Yeah, and I can't remember where it was I heard it or read it, but apparently the victims' families were like furious with her, and then they heard her speak at this sentencing, and then they kind of understood.
Yeah.
And then they felt sad for her.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Blakely was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences with no eligibility for parole.
All right, so let's see. Where are they now? I'll tell you.
Okay.
Falicia Blakely is currently serving her time at Arendelle State Prison. Not to be confused with Arendelle from Frozen 1 and Frozen 2. When she was
in Arendelle.
She's definitely not in Arendelle. She's in Arendelle. So when she was first incarcerated during her processing, it was determined that she was HIV positive.
Yeah.
Ameshia Ervin is serving her time at the same prison and will be eligible for parole in 2027.
In 2015, Ervin earned a certificate for theological studies at the Lee Arendelle Correctional Facility. In an interview, Ervin said that she believed that Barry should also have been charged, but at the time, she had no knowledge of the abuse that Blakely suffered and only found out about it later.
Although Michael Barry was not arrested for the murders, he did serve time in prison for drug and firearm-related charges. He has at least 14 children and 4 grandchildren from 10 different women. In an interview, he said he appreciated that Ervin stuck to the street code. I guess meaning that she didn't snitch, aka tell the police about his involvement. All of his involvement.
Odd
it was
statement.
His office materials and his instructions, all the things, his plan.
That was a really odd statement that he made, and it made me think, yeah, he did all these things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found him to be so
gross,
unlikable. But I will also tell you, he's not the only kind of man of his kind.
Like that, yeah. With the help of author Serenity Hall, Blakely has written some books. She accepts what she has done and her punishment and is trying to help others, advocating for incarcerated people and for women in abusive relationships. She is trying to use the proceeds from her ventures to help others and to tell her story.
There was a movie made about Falicia Blakely's life. Asked, how was it seeing your life being played on screen? What did you hope women would walk away with?
Blakely said, quote, "Seeing the movie was emotional. It's so sad how naive I was, how my mind was manipulated. I hope that women, young ladies, and teenage girls can see how we give way too much of ourselves to men, to people in general. We accommodate to the point that we lose sight of ourselves, and then we're left to figure out how to move forward with our lives once that individual is out of the picture. I hope they can look at me and see the importance of being careful who you love. Not everybody deserves it. Some people are in love with the idea of being in love. If you're the only one giving and making an effort in the relationship, it's probably not worth having," unquote.
Bars!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Who needs Iyanla Van Zant anymore? We have Falicia Blakely. Do you know who Iyanla is, Beth?
I don't.
Oh, boy. She's like a Oprah Healer kind of lady.
Oh, okay.
Everything she says, everybody's like, oh, my God. Did you hear what Oprah or Iyanla said about this? I mean, They're so wise. They're just so wise. These are just really, really wise words. And it took so much for her to get to this point of wisdom. So when Blakely was arrested in 2002, her son was just 2 years old. So he must be about 24 today. And he was raised by his grandmother, Felicia's mom. And against the odds, he did well, even went to college.
Yeah.
So that was really dope.
Really cool. Yeah.
So now let's get into our takes. Beth, what do you think of this case?
Well, Blakely had a rough childhood without enough supervision. My understanding was when she was with her mom wasn't around much. When she was with her grandmother kind of spoiled her. So she just didn't get enough supervision. Then she was molested and introduced to sex too young.
Yeah.
Learned how to use her body to get what she wanted. And then was manipulated.
Or needed to survive.
Yeah, or needed to survive. And then was manipulated by others for their gain.
Yeah.
And there was a lot more to her story that we didn't get into. I read the book, one of her books.
Cover to cover? Oh, she wrote more than... Wow.
Yeah, she wrote more than one book. And
I thought it was just
read the first one, and I didn't like it. But I think a lot of it was because it was hard to read.
Sure.
It was just, yeah.
And that's my understanding is that's what the movie on Tubi is based on.
It's based on that book.
After she gets convicted.
Yeah. And they took a lot of the really nasty stuff out of it.
Oh.
So even the movie doesn't tell the full story.
What movie can?
Yeah. I mean, you can't tell everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think that she ever would have done what she did without Mike Berry's influence.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would have.
Remember she was doing so well. Caught Taco Bell, things. I imagined that her next steps would probably be to get her GED because she didn't want to take, a grade over again. So she would have worked on that and
maybe, could have been a manager or something like that. Who knows?
And she was very beautiful. So
she was, or she is.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I shouldn't say was because she's still alive.
Yeah, no, she could have done anything.
We mentioned we could find very little about Ameshia Ervin, and that was really unfortunate because I wish we knew more.
Me too.
Everything out there is about Blakely, but Ervin was there too, and she participated, so I would like to hear her story.
Well, she's getting out in 2027, so maybe we will.
We will.
And I think she went to theology school, so maybe she'll turn this into a whole, ministry, a whole
who knows
life after incarceration ministry where she's gonna be able to save all of us. I don't know. That's my hope.
So what's your takes?
Blakely should have got an attorney.
Yeah.
Somebody should have got that young lady an attorney to protect her as much as possible because she was a victim in this too.
Right. And she was so young.
She was so young. And, there is space for many victims in the context of this story. And I think probably everybody at some point can be on the spectrum of victim, right? Blakely, why the hell did Barry become such a nasty, awful human?
Why is he such an asshole?
Why is he splashing gasoline on people and threatening to light a match? Where did he learn that from? Who told him that was okay? Who?
He was probably abused too.
Yeah.
As a child. Yeah.
Yeah. So this all, I just got a lot of generational curse vibes. I was under the impression from watching the film, that was my first piece of research, that how introspective Falicia was about, I just wanted to be loved. And I saw my mom doing that, but I'm not going to do that with my kid. And I guess if you look at it, Falicia probably learned that seeking approval, seeking love, seeking care, seeking support from outside forces like men, men can provide, men can keep you safe, men can protect you. And I think she just followed that pattern in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that her son did not succumb to whatever
that was
generational
a really
curses.
happy part of the story.
Yeah. We don't always have things
happy
to smile
parts of the
about
story.
on the story, but I think so I just want to acknowledge that Falicia did recognize a generational curse at some point, and she made efforts to try to fix it.
Yeah.
And even though it didn't work out in a picture perfect way, her son sounds like he's doing all right. And I think that is a win.
That's good.
I also just can't forget about the people who did lose their lives in this case. What else? Oh, Barry told her he would love her and he would take care of her and her kid. And he really took advantage of her desire for love and protection and safety. This is an interesting tidbit I found in my research of this case, is that there was, because Blakely was convicted in 2002 and Eileen Wuornos was executed in 2002.
Okay.
And so some people made the comparison between the two women's stories. And I think that there is a Venn diagram in which maybe these two women's stories, some similarities where it might overlap.
I don't think so at all.
Not at all?
I
Come
think
on.
the only similarities is they were both sex workers and they killed people.
Okay, sex workers killed people, traumatic childhood.
Yeah,
accomplice.
True. Eileen Wuornos, though, she wanted to kill people. And it was like something she planned to do.
Mm-hmm.
She like lured men and then she killed them. And I don't think that Falicia Blakely wanted to kill these men. I think she was forced into it. And so I don't think there's really, I mean, you did point out that, you know, there were some similarities, but I think fundamentally they're completely different crimes.
Yeah, I can see that. But lately I love a Venn diagram, and I can't unsee the Venn diagram of Eileen Wuornos and Falicia Blakely. Not to, because Eileen Wuornos' case has so much notoriety, and this case and the nuances of it does not.
Not as much, but it does have some notoriety.
Sure, yeah. I mean, a Tubi movie
definitely not as much.
Yes,
as
not
Eileen
as
Wuornos.
much. Exactly.
Eileen Wuornos has to be the most famous female serial killer in the world
of all time.
Yeah,
yeah. I think that
and
you're
I'm
right.
not really sure why, but I guess because she killed men in a similar way that men kill women.
Yeah. But Falicia Blakely and Ameshia Ervin's case and the men who lost their lives is different.
Yeah.
The circumstances, I think, are a little bit different. But again, Venn diagram, you're not going to convince me it doesn't. You're not going to convince me.
I had mentioned that I don't think that Falicia Blakely is a serial killer.
Yeah.
And that's because I think she's more of a spree killer.
Aha. Yeah. I think I'll go with you on that. And that's because it was a short period of time, not as much planning, not as much downtime.
Right, exactly.
Okay. I'm learning from my OG friend. Let us know what you've learned and what you think about this case in particular. We can't wait to hear from you. In the meantime, let's get into how not to get murdered. If you love true crime and you don't want to die, here's a tip for you.
This segment is not intended to be victim blaming. We thought of this segment because I read somewhere that a lot of people listen to true crime because they want to know what they can do to be safer. This is not meant to blame the victims. It's just learning from other people's experiences.
What do you got, Beth?
Well, I came across this website, and it's called One Love Foundation. The website is joinonelove.org.
Ooh, I love it already.
It's a national nonprofit organization with the goal of ending relationship abuse. And they said, quote, "We empower young people with the tools and resources they need to see the signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships and bring life-saving prevention education to their communities," unquote. So check it out.
That. Yeah, hip-hop air horns for Join One Love. That was a great tip. Thank you so much, Beth.
You're welcome.
So, shout-out time where we shout out any content by people of color or about people of color or any true crime goodies. Just want to shout out the Tubi film When Love Kills about this case, the Falicia Blakely story. And it is on Tubi. What do you got, Beth?
Worst Exes on Netflix. I think it's by the same people who did Worst Roommate Ever, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And then in the Untold series, there's a new one called The Murder of Air McNair, and it's also on Netflix.
Yes.
And it's about NFL quarterback Steve McNair and the details surrounding his murder in 2009.
Yeah. Very good. All very good. I was like, Steve who? but it was very good. I was captivated.
Yeah, me too.
Just to recap, the Tubi film When Love Kills, the Falicia Blakely story, as well as on Netflix, Worst Exes on Netflix, and Untold, the Murder of Air McNair.
Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media. The footnotes for each episode can be found on our website. Plus, check it out for the different ways that you can support the show. Also, join us on Patreon, where we have literally hundreds of hours of bonus content. You can also support us by supporting our sponsors or by giving us a 5-star review.
5 stars only, please.
Also, don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. Now, listen close. This is a weekly podcast, and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.
Okay.
Okay. Water in, swallow, go. So I got up to date on my vaccines. Can I tell you what they said to me at the pharmacy?
What?
I said, I'm here for my booster, and I brought my original vaccine card. She goes, girl, put that away. They don't care about us. I said,
oh my God. Oh my God.
But you know what? I had to look down, take a deep breath, and realize she's right. They don't. We have to take care of ourselves and each other. Amen.
Yeah. And Wendy's going to give you some key highlights.
Yeah, I am. Just kidding. No, I'm sorry. What? What was the question? I shouldn't have did that. I'm sorry. Okay. So it was so funny to hear you come out of your mouth.
Listen to this one.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Mm-hmm. Artists like Ludacris, Young Jeezy, Outkast, and T.I.
Phoebe Judge, is that you? Alrighty, I'm following now. Again, I'm back.
Okay.
Back on planet Earth with you.
Back
here
on
we
planet
Fruit Loops. Here we are. So, you know, I was thinking. I had a thought today that Switzerland is the happiest country on Earth, and they're like paying people to move there because their fertility rates are so low, and like paying people to have kids, and they just like pay people to live.
Maybe we need to go to Switzerland.
I think we do. Because we started the episode off like, Atlanta, the city too busy to hate. All that's important is like earning money and survival. Yeah. And some people are earning more than others and surviving better than others. Meanwhile, like it just seems really unfair. The inequality, I think, is what causes all of this stuff. And it just bugs me. Sorry, I just was thinking about Switzerland. It's my happy place. So yeah,
I was agreeing with you.
I was agreeing with you too. Okay, are we best friends again? Okay,
yes,
bye.
we are.
Okay. We've shared hotel rooms because we've gone all over the world because of Fruit Loops, serial killers, but I've never pooped in front of you with like the door open.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's the real love I'm talking about.
Okay, that's the level we got to get to before we start committing murders. Got it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't
know
poop
what
in
I'm
front of her.
risking. By I don't poop in front of her, so that's final. I like it when Beth reassures me that I'm not insane.
No, you're definitely not. No.
Okay. Well, that's always good to hear. Am I right? Especially on a Monday. All right, we're done.
That's it.
Okay. Love you. Night-night.
Go
cook dinner. I can't wait to hear what you made. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, this is Gary Chahot welcoming you to check out the French History Podcast. Our main show covers the history of France from the first humans until present. If you liked Mike Duncan's The History of Rome and wanted a similar program covering the land of beauty, culture, and love, we are exactly that. We also host world-renowned scholars who have delivered guest episodes on their specialties, including 18th century pirates, revolutionary booksellers in 20th century Paris, the special friendship between the Marquis de Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, and numerous others. Learn what you love and listen to the French History Podcast today.
Hey, podcast listeners, I'm Paul Brandis introducing my podcast, Countdown to Dallas. It's a fascinating, in-depth look at the seemingly unconnected events that led to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It's based on my book of the same title. In that book and in this podcast, I go all the way back to 1939, when Lee Harvey Oswald was born into a troubled and dysfunctional family. I'll follow his transient and often violent teenage years and young adulthood, painting a fuller picture of the man who would later become Kennedy's killer. I also take a look at events unfolding in that era, like Cuba and Vietnam, and I'll unpack the conspiracy theories too, not one of which has ever been conclusively proven. Subscribe to Countdown to Dallas at evergreenpodcasts.com or your favorite listening app, October 31st.